Are you ready? Oh, listen.
In August 1973, the skeletal remains of a young man were uncovered in Houston, Texas, inside a rented boat shed. He was among the many victims of Dean Corll, infamously known as the Candy Man. Though Corll's reign of terror ended that year with his death, one haunting mystery remains. One victim has never been identified. Known only as Swimsuit Boy, he is the sole unidentified victim of Corll's crimes. Authorities estimate the young man was between 15 and 19 years old, standing 5'2" to 5'7". He had brown hair and good dental health with no fillings. A mild case of spina bifida and chronic irritation of his clavicles suggested he may have experienced discomfort throughout his life. When discovered, he was wearing multicolored swim trunks, cowboy boots, dark blue corduroy pants, and a gray t-shirt featuring a blue peace symbol with USA and L84MF handwritten below. A leather ankle bracelet knotted around his leg was a poignant reminder of his youth. Corll, alongside his accomplices Elmer Wayne Henley and David Brooks, murdered at least 28 boys and young men during the early 1970s. Despite confessing to multiple murders, Henley and Brooks couldn't recall this victim's name or the circumstances of his death. Investigators believe Swimsuit Boy may have been killed in the spring of 1971 or 1972. Efforts to identify him have spanned decades. The DNA Doe Project, known for solving long cold cases, briefly worked on his case, but the investigation was paused indefinitely in 2020. In a strange twist, a tipster once sent photos of a boy named Bobby French, who bore a striking resemblance to facial reconstructions of Swimsuit Boy. Yet no family members of Bobby could be found, and the sender of the tip remains unidentified. The tragic loss of Swimsuit Boy's life is compounded by the fact that no one has stepped forward to claim him, leaving a lingering sadness. If you have any information about Swimsuit Boy or his potential identity, please contact the Houston Police Department or the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. This young man deserves a name and a resting place with dignity.
Oh, and welcome back to Bucklesberry Lemonade. I'm your host, Lisa, with my handsome husband and co-host, Timothy. And we would like to wish you a Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody. And hello to you, my lovely host.
You feeling better?
I'm getting there.
Okay. And today, what we're going to do is sad. It's such a sad story. I hope somebody listening can identify him.
Yeah, it's been a long time. So the clip you just watched is regarding Swimsuit Boy, as he's been called. He is the only unidentified victim of serial killer Dean Corll. Now, we say that, but there is a possibility he may not be the only unidentified victim.
Yeah, because what we've heard and seen could be as many as, 40?
As many as 40. Don't know how many of you are familiar with the Dean Corll story. We'll talk about him in a little bit, but for right now, let's just dive right on in. So here's what we know, okay? Swimsuit Boy,
is that what he's called?
Is what he has been called, was discovered August 9th, 1973, inside a rented boat shed.
And he was discovered from a confession from Dean Corll?
No, not from Dean.
Or his accomplice.
One of his accomplices. Dean Corll was actually murdered at the hands of Elmer Wayne Henley, who's still incarcerated and is considered a serial killer as well because he was an accomplice.
But there was another boy there too.
Yep. David
Brooks
was also an accomplice. David Brooks passed away in 2020 due to complications of COVID. He passed away in prison.
Okay.
And what we know is that the three of them tended to bury their victims in at least 3 locations: a rented boat shed, which is where Swimsuit Boy was discovered, High Island Beach, and Lake Sam Rayburn. They were all found inside but Swimsuit Boy was found inside the boat shed. Now, Henley and Brooks admit to being present for several of the murders, but they don't recall this particular victim.
That's sad.
Well,
I'm thinking he could have been done before.
It's possible, because when you get to digging into this, we'll get into Dean Corll's background and everything. Some people from the candy store that, they owned a candy business.
The Candy Man.
The Candy Man, as he was called, or the Pied Piper.
Pied Piper, yeah.
Or sack of shit.
Well, he's the sack of shit award. He's the biggest one today.
Yeah, but it looks like that they're saying they don't recall him, and they may not, because there's so much going on here. There's so many moving parts. It's possible that
they did and don't remember, because there's so many.
Yeah, they could be. It could be that they murdered him and don't recall it, because it's the 70s. We know Corll liked to supply them with booze and alcohol. Or booze and alcohol. He liked to supply them with booze and drugs.
Yeah.
So they could have very well been under the influence.
Mm-hmm.
It could be that Corll killed this boy without the other two, without his accomplices.
Yeah.
Because there's some serious grooming going on here. I mean, one of his victims, for example, David Brooks, he first met David Corll when he was only 12 years old.
I know, I saw that.
And
That's crazy.
Looked at him as a father figure, and then over time he groomed him, had him enter into a relationship, a predatory relationship, where he would pay David Brooks, certain amount of money to perform, I'm trying to be algorithm friendly, certain acts upon him.
Yeah.
And that's what.
Is he the one that got the Corvette?
Yeah. And so, you had all this stuff going on. And it is possible, and we're speculating, we don't know this, but there is some speculation that maybe Swimsuit Boy was a very early accomplice.
Yeah.
But we don't know that. We don't know that for a fact. So it could have been that he either way, what we do know is that his identity is not known.
Mm-hmm.
We do know that they suspect him to be a person named Bobby French or Billy French.
Billy. Oh, is it Billy or Bobby?
And I'm getting it mixed up here, aren't I?
You are.
I'm so sorry. It's Bobby French.
Okay.
And what happened was the investigators received a tip in the mail that this person could be Bobby French. They included several photos of Bobby that bore a striking resemblance to the reconstructions that were made.
But nobody has come.
Nobody. And
nobody can find. I wonder if they could do that DNA genealogy.
Well, I have no idea at this point.
I don't either.
And see, here's the other thing that brings up a good point that we get into, is that there are so many bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that they were buried, they're all in close proximity to one another.
Yeah.
You're dealing with the what could be human error. How do we know that the sack of bones that they're contained in a body bag somewhere that they've labeled as Swimsuit Boy is really that person. You know?
But see, that's bad through human error. So where is Swimsuit Boy?
Yeah. So you run that issue. We do know that DNA testing was being done through the DNA Doe network or project, and they were put on indefinite hold as a request from the investigating agency in 2020. Now, why is that?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. Why? Because wouldn't you want to find the people, his family? Because his family's got to be worried.
But see, here's the thing. In combing through this and going through all this, they can't find any missing persons reports that could have been filed around this time that match this. Okay, the reconstruction and all that. But when you compare Bobby French, his pictures
looks just like the ones they
do. They look just like that. And it's amazing to me that's the part that we ran into.
I know I would like, could it be possible maybe he had come from somewhere else, got lost?
Well, that's entirely possible. I mean, as you delve deeper into this, okay, Corll had made the comment to one of his accomplices, and I believe it was David Brooks. He actually made the comment that he was part of a child trafficking ring, and that he would pay each boy, Henley and Brooks, each one of them $200 a piece for each boy that they brought to him. And we do know that Corll tended to like them young, anywhere from 12 to 19.
19, 20.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. He had an apartment, and they would start to Henley and Brooks would bring him boys.
Okay.
Which he would torture them.
Yeah.
But he had made the comment to them that he was part of a pedophile ring. Now,
you know what I'm thinking.
Go ahead.
Now you go first. Let's see if it's what I'm thinking.
There was a documentary that came out several years ago.
The Candyman and what other serial killer?
The Killer Clown.
The Killer Clown, that's the one.
John Wayne Gacy.
Yes.
And there's a possibility they knew each other.
Yeah.
There's a possibility that there was a pedophile ring.
And he could have come from the other part to here.
You know, but not only this, look at the size of Texas.
Mm-hmm. It's big.
Texas is huge. Houston to Dallas is a big stretch.
Yeah.
You know, this boy could have been from out of state, but he could have been from another part of Texas.
He could have been.
And that's the thing that we really don't know. He had brown hair, good dental work. They believe he had a mild form of spina bifida. But and the thing about it is too that here's where it gets hairy. They're saying he could have walked with a limp because he would have had a lot of lower back pain.
Oh, really?
That would have made him a perfect target.
It would have.
Okay. But there's also the possibility that he didn't have, he might have had it, but didn't show any symptoms.
Do you know, though, think about it. Nobody knows him. The other two couldn't remember him. He could have come from the Killer Clown that way. He'd brought him to him before he got the boys working with him.
Well, I don't know, because we do know that Gacy liked to travel out of state to do work. So it's possible. I mean, hell, we even know that John Wayne Gacy built a house in North Carolina. You didn't know that, did you?
I did not know
Yes,
that. That
ma'am.
is where at North
I
Carolina.
can't remember exactly, but
Oh my goodness.
here's some things that are of interest. Okay, he had a gray T-shirt with a blue peace symbol on the back, and it contained the letters USA. And the letters are believed to be L84MF. There's some debate: is that LB 4MF? We're not sure. So when doing some research on that, okay, what we were trying to find out was that slang? Was that any kind of popular slang for the time? And
that's crazy. I don't remember. I mean, we were little, but
yeah, but one thing that stuck out to me is I wanted to know, could this have been any kind of military code or anything? Couldn't find anything.
That's what I'm kind of.
A slang term that was used sometimes during this time period was L84MF, late for my funeral.
Yeah. No,
how ironic that would be.
That would be very ironic because that's what he put up there, and he's late for his funeral.
And he's late for his funeral. So
he's never made his funeral.
Yeah. So if there was a military tie, we can't find it. Yeah, I mean, it could have been a personalized message. I even checked to see if maybe this could have been used for like a coding purpose at a secondhand store or a Goodwill store. Nothing like that was used at that time. And the shirt it's definitely got that 70s vibe for it.
Yes.
You know, it would stick out.
Yeah.
It looks like it would have been an expensive shirt. Even his swim trunks, because they had the little the buckle on front, they looked to be expensive. So I find it hard to believe that this child would have just been never reported missing. I'm not sure, but anyway, it's heartbreaking that this is where we're at.
It is very heartbreaking.
And like we were talking about with Dean Corll, okay, they suspect that the Hispanic crimes was from the law enforcement was between 1970 and 1973 that we know about.
Yeah.
But there are workers who were within the candy factory that said they know that he was burying something out behind the candy factory in as early as 1969.
Well, they needed to do something back then.
Well, they didn't report it because what he told them was he was burying outdated, expired candy. Well, and he said he didn't want anybody digging in the trash for it. That's weird.
That is weird. That would have made me. Whew.
So
even back then, that's kind of creepy. You don't bury candy. You take it, you throw it away, take it to the dump.
Yeah. So, but let's talk a little bit about Corll if we can. We know.
I did not know he was honorably discharged.
Honorably discharged.
Somebody honorably discharged doing all this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did not know. I just.
And we know that of course we've got another podcast coming out about the psychology of serial killers.
Yeah.
I'm a little late on that one, but I'll get it produced. But we know that his motives usually involve sexual sadism, possession, and control.
Yeah.
He wanted to be
in control. I guess maybe because his mama was kind of domineering. I mean, she made him go to move in with his grandma.
Yeah, he was not a good.
She was very protective of both of her sons.
Yeah, and so that could have come from that. We know that the marriage between Corll's mother and father, they had a lot of arguing, and they divorced sometime around 1946.
4 years after the birth of their younger son, Stanley Wayne Corll.
Yeah, and they say Corll rarely associated or socialized with other children. But at the same time, he would show concern for well-being of other children. Very sensitive to any form of criticism or rejection. He had an undiagnosed case of rheumatic fever as a child.
He was a shy, serious child.
And joined the club on, I had rheumatic fever.
I did not know that.
Yeah, sure did. And which is a result, Corll, as well as myself, had a heart murmur. Okay.
His parents attempted reconciliation and they remarried in 1950.
Yeah. So,
then they moved to Pasadena, Texas.
Yeah. But I find it interesting that this guy just flew directly up underneath the radar.
He did. He would. You would have never thought.
And the thing of it too is, like, David Brooks first met, David Brooks being one of the accomplices.
Yeah.
He first met David Corll in 1967.
He was 12 years old.
He was only 12 years old. And nobody found this weird that you're hanging around with a 20-some-year-old guy. And you're 12 years old.
Well, you're 12 years old. You think you're big and bad. But I would have kind of... They were going to school. Okay, I know in the 70s, but they were still kind of protective over their children, weren't they?
Yeah.
So I don't know how they let their children... What about David Brooks's family? Did they make any comments?
Not really. They divorced early on in David Brooks' life. Father moved to Houston. Mother relocated to Beaumont, Texas. And when David Brooks was 15, he dropped out of high school.
Oh.
Went to Beaumont, lived with his mom.
Oops.
Sorry, guys. Went to Beaumont to live with his mom. And whenever he visited his dad in Houston, he was allowed to go stay with Corll. And I mean, like, spend the night.
That's weird.
And so Corll's home became like a second home to David Brooks. David Brooks actually viewed David Corll as a father figure.
Mm.
I mean, he said that he was kind to him, would give him money. But now you figure he's 12. Now we're moved up to the time he's 15. That's 3 years of grooming right there.
But I think why he got so close to him was Corll was the first adult male who did not mock his appearance. I mean,
yeah,
what was wrong with...
Didn't mock his appearance at all, and
what was David Owen Brooks? I mean, was he something wrong with him?
I think he just being a kid.
That's yeah.
You're growing up in a world that is changing, because you think about this. Now he grew up in a time to where we've got the Vietnam conflict. The world is changing at a rapid pace. You've got the old guard, so to speak, the 40s, the 50s, the Marine crew cuts. Now we're entering the 60s and the 70s. You've got long hair, a time of freedom. Things are changing a little bit, and I think that's what you had here,
Yeah.
And then you go over to Elmer Wayne Henley.
Mm.
Okay. And Henley is currently still incarcerated and will be. And they attribute his victim count to be at least 7, including Corll. But he claimed self-defense in killing Corll.
Yeah.
I don't feel sorry for him on any level.
It was ruled to be self-defense.
So Elmer Henley was born on May 9th, 1956 in Houston, Texas. We know that. Okay. He was introduced to Dean Corll in the winter of 1971 when he was 15. So again, he's got a pattern of hanging around young boys,
Yeah. Now, do you see what he said about him?
Yeah, it's crazy. You know,
I know.
um, he suspected that he might have been homosexual or gay, and you, you know, I won't get into a lot of that, but
Yeah.
I'm sure that went on. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
when Henley began spending a lot of time at David Correll's house, Correll told Henley he was involved in organized theft. And David Brooks, the three of them, would go to several addresses and steal stuff. And they'd get paid money.
Yeah.
So you got the excitement of we're hanging out with an older guy. He's giving us money. We're breaking in places. We're stealing stuff. And
that would never be fun to me, but
No.
too scared I got caught.
But at that same time, according to Elmer Henley, he began to be aware of a pattern of disappearances in his neighborhood.
Yeah, so he weren't doing that then.
No, at this point, they're just breaking in houses and having a good time. You know,
Well, if he knew it was wrong, he should have left.
he should have, but then you get into the whole psychology of it all.
Yeah, which is what we're going to do next.
It's fun to all of them. You know,
I don't see how the killing would be fun.
I don't know about that. I don't know, because some of this torture that was going on here. Okay, now check this out. And here's my disclaimer. Okay, some of this is graphic. So if you don't want to hear it, you might, or if you got kids around, you shouldn't be listening to this podcast with small kids around anyway. But
no,
they would yank out the pubic hair of their victims.
Oh my goodness. Yes, I remember that.
They would gnaw or chew on their genitalia.
Oh my goodness.
We do know that they would insert glass beakers.
In other words, they suffered.
Yeah, they suffered great. They would insert these in their urethra and then smash the glass. See, David Correll had this board that he had made where these young boys were tied to this board and tortured. Torture would go on over a long period of time. So this guy was sadist. I mean, he was sick.
He was, and he didn't look like it.
You know, well, they never do.
No, they don't.
You know, and so anyway, all this happened.
He was friends with two of them.
Yeah, and Henley had even helped search for a couple of these boys prior to. But see, here's where you get into the diabolical stuff. Okay. Both, remember we talked about that he eventually said, you know, hey, I'm part of this pedophile ring. Each boy you bring me, I'll give you $200.
Yeah, but
then you get to the point to where now all of a sudden they're acquiring victims for him for money. Well, at this age, who do you prey on first? You prey on the people closest to you that you know.
Yeah.
So now they're introducing their friends to him while this is happening. So either they've been groomed to the point where they don't see the wrong in it, or it's exciting to them, or did Correll see something inside these boys, broken homes, whatever, that he was able to pull this out and solicit this out of them to be his accomplice?
I know, because he refused to offer.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you go from refusing it
to do? Well, in Henley's case, in Elmer Henley's case, at the age of 15, he said he became very strapped for cash. Because he was first told, you know, hey, for procurement reasons, I'll give you $200 for each boy. He went months before doing anything like that at all. And then he gets strapped for cash.
Is he not in? He's not in school.
He's not in school. He gets strapped for cash and then starts bringing him boys. Okay. And what he told police is that in early 1972, he decided he'd help find a boy for David Correll because of his financial circumstances. Now, at Correll's home, Henley devised a ruse in which they would lure a boy to the home, and then they would cuff the boy's hands behind his back and then con the victim into placing the handcuffs upon himself. First he'd handcuff himself, get out of the handcuffs, and then say, "Oh, by the way, I bet you can't get out of these handcuffs." And the boy couldn't get out of the handcuffs.
And see, the thing of it is, he knew it was wrong.
Yeah.
But then he turns around and does,
Yeah, Corll would pounce on them and tie their feet and
he knew
hands.
what he was going to do to him.
He knew exactly. He knew exactly.
Know.
Well, he was present for a lot of it. This ain't new to him. This guy, you can't paint him. You can't paint Brooks or Henley as victims. They are full-blown accomplices.
I know, but they were I'm just trying to, in my mind, how do you go from, I know it's wrong, no, to I need enough money, I'm willing to take somebody unsuspecting in somebody's house. I know they're going to do god-awful things with them and then kill them. How do you go from one mindset to the other?
Yeah. Well, they would often leave the house initially, believing this person had been sold, and maybe there's some kind of mental defect here. Maybe they're not understanding their actions. I don't know.
I don't know either.
Okay. But they would take the money. Okay. And so we know that eventually they started participating in the murders.
An 18-year-old friend of his, and that's some kind of friend.
Yeah. Well, remember I told you who are they going to approach first?
I know, but that's friend.
And then this went on for quite a while, and we do know that in the spring of '73, Henley attempted to enlist into the Navy. He was rejected because he had dropped out of high school. His IQ, we question their mental capability, but his IQ was 126. So he was not stupid.
I couldn't leave anyway if I did go.
Yeah.
He knew Dean would go after one of my little brothers.
Yeah. So there's fear.
Yeah.
Between June and July 1973, the three of them killed a total of 7 victims between the ages of 15 and 20. And at least 5 of those, Elmer Henley participated either in the abduction or the murder. Okay. Now, that leads us up to August 1973. Okay. Henley brought a future victim, that would have been 19-year-old Timothy Corll, to Correll's home upon the promise of a party. Hey, you want to smoke some marijuana? Get high. Maybe make a little money. And so, anyway, they left to go buy sandwiches. And when Henley and Corll later returned to the home, they brought a 15-year-old girl with them, Rhonda Williams. And Corll was furious. Dean Corll was pissed that they brought a girl, to the point that he pulled him aside and said, "You know what? You've just ruined everything." There is some speculation that at this point,
this defense, that's where he gets self-defense.
That's where he gets self-defense. They feel like at this point that he knew he was going to be killed himself. And this is the same one that walked in on him with 2 boys on that torture board, and he got a Corvette out of the deal too. So anyway, his friend, now Timothy Corll is his friend.
Yeah.
And they've known each other for years. So he gets handcuffed, and they had been bound and gagged and were laying alongside Henley on the floor. Corll then dragged Henley by his handcuffed hands into the kitchen and placed a .22 caliber pistol against his stomach, threatening to shoot him. Henley pleaded for his life, promising to help and participate. Now, this is Henley's version of the story. We don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe this is, I guess the other 2 cooperated with him, but Anyway, he agreed. Dean Corll agreed, and he untied Henley. Then they carried Curley and Williams back into the bedroom and tied them up on opposite sides of his torture rack, with Timothy Curley on his stomach and Rhonda Williams on her back. Henley at this time was handed a long hunting knife and ordered to cut away Williams' clothes, insisting that he would essay and kill the youth, as Henley would do likewise to Rhonda. They began cutting away the clothes, and as they were getting ready to assault them, Tim Curley looked at Henley and says, "Man, is this for real? Are you really going to do this?" To which he replied, "Yeah." And then he asked him again, "So are you going to let this happen? You just going to let him do this to me?"
Mm-hmm.
Now you think about this, okay? Imagine, and I won't mention her name on the air, but your best friend who's like your sister. Okay. You imagine the shock and fear that she would have if she realized you just lured her there.
I know.
And all of a sudden, can you imagine the power and the emotion that you're feeling right then? The power of that emotion.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
So he grabbed the pistol. Henley grabbed the pistol and he told Dean Corll, "Okay, you've gone far enough, Dean. It's got to stop."
Yeah.
Dean, even with a gun pointed at him, didn't back down. Now you got to figure now, this guy is crazy as hell. All right.
Yeah, he's liable to do something.
He's crazy as hell, and he's military trained.
Yep.
He didn't back down.
Nope.
He didn't back down at all. And he walked toward him shouting, "Kill me. Kill me. Damn it, kill me." And it was at that point that he opened fire.
Won't do it.
Yeah. He opened fire, shot him in the head. Corll continued to advance, which I find that a little hard to believe. You done shot him in the head, but shit happens.
People live through.
Yeah. And so he again fired another
2 rounds.
2 rounds, hitting him in the shoulder. He staggered out of the room, and he fired a total of 3 more to the rear and right of his shoulder and upper back, which killed him. He released his friends, and then they phoned the police department.
We know maybe if he'd have been smart and not said nothing, he might have been one of the victims too.
He could have. He was heading that way. I think he was heading that way. And interestingly, when you read about this stuff, David Brooks, you just don't find a lot of information about him.
I know.
Okay, you don't really find a lot of information about him. But when I was doing the research for this podcast, getting back to Swimsuit Boy, okay, they cannot figure out who this young man is. Bobby French, if this is Bobby French, and it's a striking resemblance.
It is. I mean, y'all need to look at the picture. It looks a lot like him.
And guys, we've skipped over some of this, but you know, the whole point of all this is to get you curious enough to go online and look. Suppose you are from Texas right now listening to this.
And and maybe you see him and you're like, that looks like my aunt's son.
Yeah, maybe it jogs a memory. Maybe my third cousin went missing in the early 70s and
Yeah. I've seen a picture of that boy somewhere.
Yeah, and then there you go. But we don't know. We don't have the answers that either Bobby French's family has been contacted and refused to participate, or they can't be contacted, because here's the kicker. The boy's name may not have been Bobby French.
I know, and that's so sad.
Maybe that was somebody trying to help, or maybe it was somebody throwing a curve. But either way, the picture of this person.
They threw a curve. They should have not.
it looks so much like these reconstructions. I mean,
It does.
when you look at that, it's like, damn.
It really does.
And so
I
that's just a
mean,
mystery to me.
maybe you can see the picture and it'll jog a memory.
And over the years, they've excluded several different people, several different boys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They've excluded at least 15 boys. You know, and again, Dean Corll's the Candyman. His count could be sky high,
upwards to 40.
Yeah,
that's what they're thinking.
And when you look at the pictures of this, like we talked about, a Swimsuit Boy was as considered now the only unidentified victim. I don't believe he's the only unidentified victim.
I don't think so either.
But when you look at the pictures, and they're in the video of the boat shed, the amount of bodies
that were in that boat
shed.
How didn't he remember where he buried them all?
Well, you know, I guess they just, you know, here's where we buried them, and, you know, good luck
just
with
maybe dumping them on top of them, if nothing else.
But if the boy he had on a pair of corduroy pants, pair of boots, the shirt we talked about, and the swim trunks. Yeah. So he had those swim trunks on for a reason. He was going swimming in his mind. Yeah. Okay. And that tells me he probably got lured there under the pretense of playing at the beach or in a pool or something. And we know he could have been between 15 and possibly 19 to 20. I'm going to err it on the younger age because, you know, one of the oldest victims here was 19, 20. He liked them young. Yeah, he did. He liked them young. He did. But guys, as we said before, Swimsuit Boy was discovered on August 19th, 1973. They feel like that he probably died sometime between 1970 to 1972. Okay. So there's no telling how long he was buried in that boat shed.
At least he's out of the boat shed now.
He would have been between 5'2", 5'7". They do believe this cause of death was strangulation because the hyoid bone here in the throat was broke. And that's what we know. And hopefully somebody that knows something.
If you see that picture and it jogs a memory and you think you know seen that picture somewhere, or maybe you knew somebody way back then that looked like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just crazy. Yeah, you know. And it's just a total crazy thing. But they do know so far they've accounted for at least 27 boys between the ages of 13 and 20 buried within those 3 locations. And an additional victim was discovered in 1983. 17 of the victims were found buried in the boat shed. A further 4 were found at Lake Sam Rayburn. 6 bodies were found at the High Island Beach. You just, I don't know, man. I mean, it's just the sickness that is so
how is it? I mean, but grooming, you know, grooming. I mean, he groomed them, but I mean, so how do we know they didn't have? I mean, that's how they were conditioned.
Yeah.
And even when they got older, because that's what they've known.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that really brings us to pretty much the close of it. I mean, we've kind of glossed over a lot of things.
Yeah.
But the thing that is interesting to me when you get into the psychology of it all, but could there have been a connection between the killer clown and the Candyman?
I think there could have been. I don't know who can prove it, but
well, that's a very deep thing. I've watched part of the documentary, haven't watched all of it, and it makes you wonder. You know, that would have been a whole network that spanned across the United States. Mm-hmm. There would have been exchanges of pictures and videos and boys.
Uh-huh. So, like, Swimsuit Boy, that's like I was saying, he could have come, not saying he did, but he could have come from somewhere other than Texas.
He could have, and like we talked about, Texas being so big, Dallas to Houston or Beaumont either. Beaumont to Houston is what, 85 miles or so, 86 miles, somewhere around there.
And back then they didn't have all the communication stuff they got now.
That we have now. But guys, that brings us to an end of our podcast. We hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any idea, any information as to the real identity of the Swimsuit Boy, one of Dean Corll's victims, and right now considered the only unidentified victim, please contact the authorities.
Please.
And with that,
we hope you have a happy new year.
A happy new year. And we hope to see you soon. And with that, happy new year and a good night.
From the Bucklesberry Lemonade crew.
Thanks, guys. Good night. Funny that come in.